But here we are, and Alexi, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too, and in the Bay Area.
Yeah, welcome home. What are you doing here?
I'm here for a race that I'm doing in collaboration with the Berkeley Half Marathon called the Bravey 10K. So there's going to be a 10K in addition to the half marathon and other races going on Sunday here.
Wonderful. So that must be your race, Bravey.
Yeah, it's good. Yes, it is. It's very fun. There's I have a race with the San Francisco Marathon that's in my legal name, Alexi. But this one is Bravey, and it's fun because there's alliteration, and also for me, it's fun because I was born here. At probably less than a mile from here, I was born, so it's fun.
Well, welcome home, Alameda, right? Mm-hmm. My friend just bought a house there. And it's a great place.
Yes.
It's an island, which is wild.
The island city. Yeah. Alameda is.
Call it that?
People do. Alameda is funny because when you grow up there, maybe not anymore, but you never think the place you grew up is cool until you leave. And then you're like, this place is pretty cool. So.
I 100% agree with that. I'm wearing my San Jose State shirt right now.
Yes.
But that was
worn.
Well worn. Very well worn. And I went there and I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So it wasn't until I left the Redwoods and was living in the city that I looked around. I thought, wow, this was really cool to grow up in and get to run and stuff. So I definitely can see what you mean about that. Well worn. And actually at San Jose State was about the time that I learned who Alexi Pappas was. Because I was running cross country there. I think I started running there as a sophomore. But I was just fully immersed in the world of all things cross country and track and collegiate and professional and beyond. And I wanted to have you on because you have such a unique story and you were just always really inspiring to me then, now. And I just wanted to catch up and introduce the Vancast listeners who are not all runners, of course, but you are someone who inspires beyond the world of running as well. So I want to have you on.
Thank you. And this is I'm sure everybody asks you about this van.
The van.
Did you build it? I'm sure people have asked you that already. Did you build all the wood around it?
I am not that handy. There was a company that I hired to build it in Colorado.
So there's companies that do that?
Yes, a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of companies. So it was just a shell of a van. And I got it with the intention of actually doing outdoor adventure filmmaking, having the solar charging equipment, being able to be on the road and, being able to just have all your amenities and cameras and things. And then when I started a full-time job, I thought, how can I still use the van and be creative when I can't leave San Jose for extended periods of time? So that is when I thought of, I love interviewing people for videos. I'll bring the studio to my guests.
Yeah, it's very
Vancast.
Cool. Very cool.
But I think the only other runner that I've had on is Dean Karnassus, earlier this year, perhaps, actually. And so I'm glad to have you on. And I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself and tell the folks a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I saw Dean recently at the Leadville 100. I ran into him on the street.
Really?
Yeah, he was trying to give me advice, which is very kind of him. It's very funny when people give you, I think he has I'm a Greek. This will be part of my bio. I'm a Greek American. Dean is also Greek. So I think he feels very kindred, familial spirit with me. And like a good, family member. I think he wanted to give me advice that I probably needed the day before that race. I am an Olympian in the 10K on the track for Team Greece. And I ran in the Rio Olympics and ran very, very fast. And then have since been kind of navigating a tangential running and creative career that are both revealing themselves to me. I think running is one of those sports that I always will love. And I don't ever want to do it in the same way I've done it. Mostly because I feel very happy with every kind of step of my journey. So it doesn't feel like I have things left to prove in things I've already done. And now I am an author of 2 books, and I just signed to write a 3rd book, more of a big think book. And my first book was called Bravey. And now I'm guiding for blind athletes in running and running trails and doing the Bravey race with the Berkeley Half Marathon and things like that. And just figuring out what I want to do creatively as well.
You do a little bit of everything, or a lot of bit of everything.
A little bit. Yeah. Being multi-hyphenate though is important. I think I used to think it was like a odd thing, but there was a writer's strike in Hollywood and that was for good reason, and an actor's strike. But to be able to support myself during that time was important, right? So I think being multi-hyphenate is healthy and necessary, especially right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to follow your passions with whatever they may be, especially if you have more than one. Sometimes I think, I'm sure you can agree, there's not enough hours in the day sometimes for all the things you want to do. And like I said, I kind of came across you and your story when I was in college, running cross country myself. And it was cool because, there was you, this person who was, running fast, and also you would share these, amazing, really quite ultra inspiring messages with people who would ask you advice, like how to be brave. Like, where did that all begin for you? Because that's kind of when I came across you, is when you're, running and you're the famous runner with the bun, and people are reaching out to you for advice, not just in running, but about a lot of things with life.
I think if you have a grasp over the English language and you're speaking to people coming from a place of building your own life. So like everything I've done has been, I feel grateful for any athletic gifts I may have been born with, but I think a lot of the things I built myself. And so the combination of like hard-earned lessons and the ability to communicate makes for a really wonderful opportunity, but also like almost a responsibility to share that stuff, because people need help. And I would have liked a lot more help, I think, growing up. And so I just tried to share in my own way, partly because I don't think I had, you hear what you need to hear from the people you hear it from. So like, I don't think I speak to everybody, but the people I speak to, I think I really speak to them. And that means something to me and something to them. And I think to be useful in that way is important, especially in a career that can feel at times selfish. Being an athlete, being an artist, it's like, it's so worthy to have your own dreams, but it is really, really wonderful to be able to connect with people and have a purpose outside of your own performance too.
Yeah, that's so true, because again, like you said, not everybody connects fully with someone else's story, but that's a huge reason why I do this show, is because I'm inspired by people who succeed or want to excel in whatever it may be, and can share that story of overcoming with others, not just hold that in to themselves. And the cool thing too with you is that you've had to show that you have come to excel in all these different ways to be able to have this platform, to be able to share these stories on a wide scale. So even going back, I want to get a little bit into, how you started running, because, I have my own personal story of why I started running. I'm sure everybody has very personal reasons for why they get into anything that really takes up a lot of their time, if they're really passionate about something. So, where did I guess running, not that that's the only thing you do, obviously, but where did that particular thing start for you?
Running was always a big element in all the sports I played. So it was like, I think I had the more played every sport and then narrowed it to running once I found joy in running path, which people have. Like some people, I think, find running to be joyful immediately. I didn't. I was like just as confused as some people listening might be about why somebody would put themselves through the kind of pain you put yourself through with running. And running does hurt for everyone. Like the first 10 minutes are like particularly unpleasant at first, and then you can warm up into runs. So I was good at running though. And it felt like if I could like the thing I was good at, that would be ideal. But I didn't like it in high school. I didn't have a great team of, I we didn't have great leadership on the team showing us that it could be a team sport, which, as you know, being a cross country runner, it is a team sport. But I ran because it was something I was good at first. And then I found joy in the sport when I had a team that I loved and a coach that I loved, which didn't come until college. And then I continued to run because now I think I like it more than I used to. Like, I think and I think that's partly because I am running now in a way that feels a little more social, a little more connected to other people, a little less angsty, right? So running has evolved. Also, it is a great way to see a place, and it is a great way to get to know people. Like, you have the best conversations running. So that was the path. But I can't deny that being good at something it's hard to not try to do something that you're good at. Right? Like, and it can be really confusing, right? If you're good at something you don't love.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have that situation. I think quite a few people are good at something they aren't initially drawn to, or are not good at something that they love. Like, that's a weird thing.
For sure. I talk about that all the time. And again, I don't have necessarily the perfect example, but, you could chase what you love and find a way to make that, a sustainable part of your life for the basic necessities that a person needs to survive. And then there's other times when people may say, I'm going to go to medical school, not because I have a passion for medicine, but maybe because they see that you can make a lot of money in something. But I think it's obviously more important to Sirens, part of the Vancast experience. It's important, I think, as you have discovered, to really follow, what makes you happy. And it's that beautiful synergy when you can find what makes you happy and then sustain yourself with it too.
Sustain yourself with it and commit to it. I think that's the real pivot, is like when people, regardless of their promise in whatever it is, can they decide to like lean in and do it to their potential, right? Like have a personal pursuit of something and hope that it transcends their personal best into like an actual career or whatever that is, But a lot of people are afraid to commit to something because it's uncomfortable to do that. It's so uncomfortable to commit.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get to where you want to be or whatever, and it can be heartbreaking, right? And so some people don't even want to try for those goals.
Yeah, it's hard, and sometimes too it's difficult to see the end result when you're in the middle of beginning something that you don't see the success in right away, or paying bills is hard, and you're like, I love this thing, but when do I give it up?
Well, I think to that you have to always be. I had a coach who was like, you always have to have your basics covered. So she made sure that like if we were going to pursue anything running as one path, you always needed to have like basics, meaning your food, your shelter, your health insurance. Like she was like, you're not going to do well if you feel like you're struggling to survive. So I think that was an important advice I got, and it helped me make decisions about which training group, where I lived. I lived in not rural Oregon, but I lived in Oregon, which was a lot more affordable than training or living in New York City when I was like 22 years old, because I could have my basics and train. And then the question of when do you give it up? I think we have to give ourselves like a period of time to chase whatever it is we're chasing, and not poke our heads out of that little incubator during that time, unless something goes awry that it causes you to have to lift your head up, right? So people have to give themselves a period of time to do the work too.
Yeah, I think you truly have to be in tune with your heart, because I think that adversity is what makes you realize the worthwhileness of chasing that dream while things are hard, and then you come out on top. You come out and see that dream, actualized. Was it for you then in college, or at what point for you did you know that you wanted to make it a career, whether it was, racing or just using running to connect with others, and then again going back to that sustaining yourself theme?
It was just a year by year thing. Like I've never planned my life more than a year in advance. And that has been like the best thing, because every year it was like at the end of the year or whenever decision time came around, right? So like at the end of my time in undergrad, it was like towards the end, it was clear that I might have the opportunity to run after college, but that wasn't an opportunity I could have hoped for 4 years prior. So it wasn't a 5-year plan. It was like a 1-year plan. It's always been a 1-year plan, I'll be honest with you. And I think that's probably, for some career paths, it's very important to not plan too far in advance, because the world will bring you opportunities you don't predict, and your growth you might outgrow what you think you can do in a year, right? So for me, it was like a year by year thing, and I just kept making these like leaps toward running, because running was becoming more and more like momentous for me. But if it wasn't momentous, or if it felt like it wasn't a reasonable thing to try, I don't know if I would have done it. You know what really gave me courage was a coach of mine who was an Olympian, was like, you could try to go to the Olympics. And that did matter, right? To have somebody who was like, you could take this seriously, who I trusted. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier about like who you hear certain things from matters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important too. I think like mentorship is obviously really important with, you trust somebody, it's something that you want to do. And that, again, everything comes together. When was that mentioned to you, this Olympic dream?
That was mentioned to me at Dartmouth. So I was like a senior at Dartmouth, and I was going to pursue grad school in creative writing. And I was really set on that. Like I was going to be done running, go become a writer, which is what I wanted to do. Got into great grad schools and was planning on pursuing that. And then he kept sort of like he had said it sometime during that senior year. And then I decided to go run at Oregon, which was a 5th year. Some people get these like super senior year of eligibility, which I had like 2 seasons. And it was very scary to go run at Oregon, which was a great running school, instead of going on this like academic path. But it was that confidence, I think, from that coach that did help me pursue that. And then the kind of belief grew from there.
Yeah. How cool was that? I mean, was it also just exciting too? Because again, that's when my friends and I were kind of following many runners, but like Oregon stands out. You have these larger than life people who really do, for good reason, become like really nationally recognized people. And especially when someone like yourself who has just a really awesome, outlook, and you're sharing amazing, feedback and stories with people. You're bringing people inside with you on that journey. That had to be fun too.
It was so fun. Oh my gosh. Being a part of anything that is the best in its little world. So Oregon was the best running school in the country at that time. I think it remains very competitive most years. It was so fun because your one team point that you might score will matter. It will make the difference of a national championship. And you feel like it's such a quintessential experience if you're an athlete to go to a school that celebrates the sport that you play. And it was so fun. And it was fun because I had long been balancing academics and athletics, and it didn't feel like I had to do that balance for the first time in my life. It felt like a taste of what it was like to really just be an athlete. And I really loved being an athlete, and I was very good at it, like very good at doing it. So it was awesome. It was so awesome. I didn't know how sustainable it would be. And I never, ever thought that I would support a family with this sport, or, I didn't know that that was a reasonable thing to think about. Nor did it feel healthy to think about it that way, as far as your performance and money. And, you always have to do it for the right reasons.
Did you know at the time, did it feel special? Like you start to did you realize in the time, wow, people are starting to reach out to me, from all over the country about, you're inspiring them and stuff. What were you realizing at the time? There's something going on here. This is really cool.
I think what it was like, I finally had the performances to give me a platform to have the voice that I already had, right? Like I was already like who I was. It's just, it didn't matter to this audience until I had the credential of like performing. And that's an interesting thing to point out, because probably in any world, like you want to like be objectively like good in that world. And I know that's not you were asking what it felt like. I mean, what it felt like was like a path I wanted to follow. I was curious. I didn't think it was doing anything bad. Like I think it was good. I wanted to make sure about that. And it was fun because social media was new then. And so you were kind of playing this game of like, what can this platform, it was Twitter at the time. What is Twitter like? What does it do? How can you like play with it? But it felt low stakes. It didn't feel like my primary work. And that's an important thing to talk about too, is that at that time, social media felt like it was your secondary work. And today, there's a lot more influencers out there where their social media is their primary work. So reaching people is their primary work. Having fans is your primary work.
And not just a byproduct of...
Yeah, back then it was like, you know, athletic contracts didn't include anything about social media back then. So the audience was amazing because you felt like you were having a little slice of what it might feel like to be in the NBA or something. You know, like running isn't the biggest sport, but you did feel like kind of an all-star in its own way. But it's changed because now that fan base is something that people are quantifying, and they're putting value on you, not only for how fast you run, but how many fans you have. So being a professional athlete is so different now.
Yeah, and what you do outside, like, you know, they really want, probably, I'm assuming, a deeper look. They kind of expect, like, bring me into all the moments now.
Yeah, I don't do that, but I appreciate that people do.
Okay.
Well, I only don't because I don't always have something to say. Like I don't know how anybody reports on every moment in their life.
And you got to have time for yourself too.
Yeah. Well, I'm just such a confused person that I think I need time to like work things out for myself and be like, I wouldn't even know what to report on because I would need time to process it and be like, what is happening here?
Sure.
You know?
Well, something that I don't think I've ever mentioned on this podcast before, but I'll tell you because you're here and it has to do with you, which sounds weird. But basically around the time that I was running, or actually during the time I was running, you know, I wasn't expecting myself to run cross country in college. I only started running as a senior in high school, and I just fell in love with it. You know, I lost a bunch of weight the first summer I started running because I was a football player and just not, you know, really eating healthy and things. And I actually, before I ran cross country, I started doing like ultras and running 50s and stuff.
Wow.
And I met Dean actually back like a month before I ran the Meriden Headlands 50.
Oh, that must have been beautiful.
It was. And it was also horrible. And I didn't train properly and hallucinated and all these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I was only 18 at the time. So I thought I should probably cool it on this a little bit for the time being. So I was able to walk onto San Jose State's team my sophomore year of college. And, you know, there were, you know, sometimes you hear, you know, I don't think people meant it in like a bullying way, but you hear things that people say and you really internalize it. And for me, it was, you know, my body type was different from a lot of my teammates. It was, you know, people would say like, oh, Nick, like, why aren't you run so much? Why don't you look like, you know, your teammates and stuff like that? And it really manifested itself in like really unhealthy eating behaviors and wanting to, you know, look like people that I wasn't meant to look like. And I knew that was a problem. And I knew that I needed to change that. And I had a few key conversations. One of them was with Lauren Fleshman, actually, at Peyton Jordan. And I said, you know, how do you make running sustainable? And without her even knowing, you know, my background, she says, you got to feed the beast. And that was something that I held on to, you know, take care of yourself because, you know, this is the body and the life that you have and how are you going to fuel yourself to be successful. And a lot of it was, seeing you talk with people online about what is being brave mean in people's individual lives. And that was a big help to me because, I thought being brave means overcoming something that you don't want to necessarily, or that's really hard. And so, I credit a lot, to you for, you telling somebody something else about food or not necessarily even food. And that really stuck with me, seeing somebody who is performing super, super well, but also coming down to people's levels and saying, there's more to life than just what you see online. There's a person here who wants to, care for you and tell you these things. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you and thank you for that. So
well, I'm thankful that you shared what you went through too, because that is a really common but well-kept secret, I think, especially for male runners, right? That I know that exists. It's just not as common to hear about it, I think. And yeah, like mostly just like I think just life is like supposed to be about growth, right? And like we're allowed to grow, we have to grow. And then growth is like so painful, that part that you mentioned. And so trying to like make it feel like that is, I don't know if it's like gamifying it or what, but making people feel like they can like take that task on. It's very normal. And fall hard and soar high is like, I don't really know any other way to live, to be honest, because I've fallen like super hard many, many times. And it's cool because you can like, as long as you're like alive and able to keep moving forward, you can always keep moving forward. And I know that's like, it's such a weird thing to say, but it's like, yeah, if you can like, as long as you're here, you can keep moving, right? And doing, progressing in some way. It's just always slower than we'd like it to be. And it's always harder than we'd like it to be. And I think I've accepted that now, that like, it's not up to me how long these changes take. And it's also not up to me what my thoughts and feelings are. So like the stuff you struggled with wasn't really, you can't obviously have chosen that or not. But once and it was coming from a good place, right? Like you were trying your best.
all right.
The influences were probably difficult and could have been avoided, not by you, but by like the world being a different place. But once you fell into like those, it's kind of like a t-shirt going into a washing machine and like being colored by another shirt around it. Like it's not your fault that you were around it and were affected by it. But how do you like, turn into a tie-dye shirt once you've turned pink? Like how do you then take it and become the next version of you? You probably will never be a plain white shirt again or whatever, but that's okay.
And you can be proud of it and take it in stride eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, yeah. I hope so. Sometimes I think about like the things we wish didn't happen, or like the pain or the injuries mentally, physically. Like what, like, is it fair to say that it will always have happened for a reason, or that like, is that true? I don't know. I don't know if like we needed the actual injuries or those things, but something has to be like good about all challenge that results in growth, because you grow, right?
Yeah. And they happen. If they happen for a reason or not, they happen, and it's what you choose to do with it after that. Truly.
Yeah. You have basically, when things happen to you that are difficult and you see yourself overcome them, it's really important, right, to evolve as a person who will be able to be equipped for whatever, right? Like, isn't it, it's important to be like, to not only like have gone through it, but to like decide that you've grown, right? Like growth, I think, is a thing that you are actively participating in.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Because again, I think it is easy to sometimes hear those outside voices sink down, and it really does take a lot of hard work and help to sometimes get out of these holes, mental, physical, whatever it may be. But I think it just, again, it goes back to oftentimes what can help is looking to someone who's been there before. Again, for me, a huge influence was you. And I don't mean to put like a bunch of pressure on you by saying that.
I'll take the pressure because I think I have been there. I think I've been through a lot of things that that I don't wish for anybody else to go through.
I don't know what you want to talk about. I know you're very open with your own story, but like, was there, this ever feeling of, I've experienced, hard things, and I know other people are experiencing hard things. Let's do this thing together. Like, can you talk a little bit of I guess, your background talking and being open with hard things in life and mental health?
Yeah. So, well, I think if I'm a brand new person, I had a very bad post-Olympic depression that I wrote about in a book. And I felt like the right place to share it was when I was no longer sick and I had gotten the help and I was wiser than the person who had gone through it. And that's always been important to me to like, when the writer of a movie is smarter than the dumb characters in the movie, right? And so I really love sharing what I've gone through once I have something to say about it. I know that and so with the post-Olympic depression, I learned some like incredibly life-saving tools, and they saved my life, and I needed to do that for myself so that I could keep living. And then I think I've gone through other challenges since that I'm still like kind of navigating and figuring out like what would I even say about this? Because I'm still in these evolutions. Like I'm some of this stuff a lot of it comes back to mental health because everything's related to it. But a lot of it is like, yeah, I guess it's all mental health related. But in terms of like bringing people along with me, it's just, as an athlete, we are always looking for specific instructions that we can follow with our bodies, like physical things we can do or ways to think. It's how we are coached, right? From any sport, you are given tactical support. Like you're not, someone doesn't tell you like, hey, just be a good basketball player. Like they tell you learn technique, right? And so with mental health, I learned techniques and ways to think about it. And that was the only way that I could heal. And so the very primary thing was learning that my depression was an injury. And that was just such a simple way to think about it. But I never thought about it that way. And having lost my mom to suicide, I was like, man, I never understood it that way. It just felt like this like cloud that came over her because that's how it was described to me. And so when I learned, okay, this is an injury, I can get help, I can go see a doctor, it's going to take time to heal, just like an injury. What works for you might not work for me, just like an injury. I started to be like, oh, I understand this. I don't know how long what's going to help me, but I just got to go start trying things. And so sharing felt necessary because that turned everything around for me. Like it was like in a single day, I went from feeling completely helpless to feeling completely helpable. Yeah.
I think that's a really important, and I thank you for sharing that because, who knows who is out there listening to this podcast who really could benefit to hear that, the analogy of mental health. Really, we could treat, injuries the same as somebody who's, struggling with depression or anything like that, to destigmatize it truly as well. I think another important thing too, do you ever think about how it's important, I think, for all humans to really have these tools perhaps before they do experience something future, in their life, whether that pops up, from an event or just, from their brain, doing that, these tools are something that can benefit people going forth as well.
For sure. It's like a prehab in athletics where you do things to prevent injuries as well. So I think one, it's good to know that you can be helped so that you're not so afraid of like having any challenges mentally. I think it's just good to know that like should one arise, there is a path and there are experts and there are people and you're helpable, because some people are afraid to even admit they're not happy or feeling something weird because that seems too murky of waters to enter. And then the more you can deal with it before it becomes like a red flag, like there's yellow flags too. So I think what you're pointing to is maybe people slowing down or having tools for before it's like a crisis.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, something that I think I mentioned that because I heard you on the Rich World podcast, which was a phenomenal interview. I have a lot to live up to with his interview skills, but yeah, something you mentioned that was when you saw, photos of your mother and thinking back of, in that photograph, could she have known that, later in life she would have, experienced deep depression? And that was really, that kind of stopped me and thought, it's important for people to have tools. So in case in the future they experience anything traumatic, that there would be tools in place for them to know ahead of time.
Yeah. And unexpected things happen, good and bad.
Yeah.
Like we can't control everything. So just to also accept that things can change for better and for worse. That's a scary, scary thing, but it's really like, it's kind of good to just like accept that too.
It is. You can't stop life from coming sometimes, and things that are outside of your control will happen. Do you think for you, being somebody who has, vastly explored your expertise and gotten degrees in creative writing, does creative writing help you to, get through things? I know you said, sharing publicly once you've really figured things out and how you see something, but how do you view writing in terms of a tool helping you as well in your own experiences of life?
It can be very cathartic, certainly, to like have bookended a part of your life and described it in a medium that works for you. Because like there's lots of different ways to write creatively. There's poetry, there's movies, there's books, there's Instagram. Like there's so many platforms. So I think it's satisfying. Like on a personal level, there's like artistic and probably emotional cathartic satisfaction out of like capturing in words what you are really feeling. It's hard. It's hard to capture what you feel and communicate. It's very weird to try to do that because it's what's in your brain and your heart. I'm writing a play right now and nobody's seen it. And I'm like really scared to show it to anybody. I have to show it to people soon. And I'm so afraid that it's terrible, but it's definitely capturing like a different side of me. It's kind of it's an athletic perspective, but it's like it's scary. So sometimes I don't feel super confident with this stuff when it's just me, when it hasn't like received the feedback yet. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm saying is that I don't know if this one communicates yet. It might, but it might not, and we'll see.
Are you able ever to look back and say, you've had a lot of success with past things that you can kind of ease your mind by saying, this is scary, but at the same time, like, you're an expert,
well,
in writing.
What's comforting is to know that it's true.
Okay. So like the play itself, or
it's more like it's a one person show, so that means it's kind of my voice, but it's dramatized. So it's like, but everything I say is like true. So it's like, okay, something about that feels like good because you're not writing like something that isn't true. It's just, I guess, do people care about my truth? Maybe what's going on is a little bit of self-consciousness that like I take a strong stand in it. And it's like, well, that's how I feel. It might not be how everybody feels. So maybe it's just scary because it feels closer to me than if you're writing fiction, for example, you're kind of putting yourself through other characters and it's more watered down because maybe no one character is you. Maybe you wrote them all, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe the plot is, maybe it takes place in a place that isn't yours. It's true, but it's like safer because it's removed from you. So maybe this is like, what's safe to me is that it's true because I'm like, well, it is true. And what's unsafe to me is that it's true.
Yeah, that has to be scary. But at the same time, like, I think about it in terms of like this podcast right now. You know, what if it helps one person to say, you know, one person listening to listen and say, wow, I've never thought about mental health in that way. And it helps one person. You know, the play will resonate, you know, with at least one person, you know, and who knows who that person could be. And when you put it out and it's just the right time, and hopefully that's of some comfort too. And
it is.
And you're great at what you do.
And I know that no one else could have written it. And that might be true about everyone's writing, but it's definitely true about this, where it's like it's a very specific perspective. And I think that that's probably what every creative should do, is like try and do something that is uniquely theirs as best they can. Because like that's something that means something. I mean, it might not. Like people, you can't guarantee that people care about it, but it means it is entirely original if you are being specific and truthful.
I wanted to ask you, because again, my background is in film, and I thought that was really cool. Again, going back a little bit to my college years, when I'm like, oh wow, this girl is like really cool and inspiring. She runs, and then there's like this element of filmmaking too. You know, how you know, close do you hold that filmmaking to your heart and your journey as well, amongst all of the things you do?
It's so important to me. I mean, it's evolving, right? So I just premiered another indie film in Texas a couple weeks ago that's coming out next year, that stars the RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan and a bunch of comedians. But what I'm also very interested in is I'm moving into television, and to me that takes a long time, because like movies you can kind of will into existence. Like if you really want to make a movie, you'll figure out how to make it. A TV show, somebody has to say yes at these places that buy TV shows
to get it on like a network. Okay.
Yeah, and so the film career is really, really important to me. It's just I cannot rush it. I can just keep showing up to it, and it's happening. So I have a few television shows in development with one with Michelle Wolf, who's a comedian and a runner. And that's an animated show, which is going to be very fun. And one that's based on some IP about, it's like kind of a more high concept stuff. Like it's fun stuff. It's a lot of it's athletic, but the creative stuff is important to me. It's just, it takes time to grow, right? I don't want to just keep making indie films as much as I love them. And I also want to make an Olympic horror movie.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. That sounds exciting already. Yeah. What I love about your filmmaking too is that it's always like, I don't know if like, it's always has, I don't want to say helpful, it's always very meaningful. The things that you create films about. I don't want to mispronounce. Is it Tall as the Baobab?
Oh, Tall as the Baobab tree.
Baobab. Okay. You know, a film like that, you know, Tracktown, that explores so many human themes, you know, Olympic, like how are you, you know, deciding on films? Because these are obviously films that span multiple genres, but in some way or another, like have a great impact on, you know, people can look at them and say, wow, that's a really, you know, positive way to look at life.
That's a good question. I mean,
because you can also just make a movie that's like, this is funny to me, or I like this shot, but I think it feels deeper with your work, film and outside.
I think I have a lot to still explore as a filmmaker, but what I knew I needed to do was be specific. And so that's why those movies are like all set in worlds that are very specific. Mm-hmm. And they say things because my experience in those worlds was meaningful enough to say something. And so I think it really was just like a product of being in the place that said something to me. Mm-hmm. So it's like you of course you're going to say something if it's your world or it's a world that you become familiar with. Right. Like if I didn't blend fiction with reality, because a lot of these movies, they blend fiction with reality. If it was just pure fiction, it might be a different way into that house of saying something. But I think once you're blending fiction with reality, it's almost hard not to say something, because otherwise it's like you Like it impacted you enough clearly that you're making a movie about it. So hopefully the movie will have impact and mean something. And I don't know. I think now though, where I'm moving is like, what do I want to do? And like, what's interesting to me? And the messaging, I hope, like with a horror movie, for example, messaging is much more like you don't hit people over the head with it, right? It's somewhere in the metaphor. It's somewhere in there, hopefully.
Sure.
So I think that sounds like a fun task too, is like being less overt about it, but still having the meaning in there.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're a scary movie fan then?
Yeah, but I think I'm a fan of what they can do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the idea of like thinking about building a creature and like just also like personifying or creaturifying fears and things that that athletes go through. It just feels like the right medium to describe the scary chaos of being an athlete.
See, right there again, it's so cool that you go back to like channeling, personifying, things, these human emotions, I think that's what really makes your work all the more meaningful. That's so cool right there. Even in the daydreams, it's right there. Something else that I probably should have talked about at the beginning that I definitely wanted to just make sure we mentioned was when we did briefly meet at Peyton Jordan in 2016. That was when you qualified for the Olympics.
Yeah.
And there's a photograph I'll share over here, actually. Maybe I'll just grab it.
I need to take a picture of you with it. Right now, I'm going to take it.
Full circle.
You have to hold this up.
I will hold this up.
Hold on, I'm pulling your Fiji water. Because we're advertising your podcast, not Fiji water. Oh
yeah.
My God, this is so... Oh my God, that's amazing. Amazing. Okay, I have like 8,000 pictures of this now. Okay.
But full circle of this night where, again, I was inspired by just, seeing your performance in running, but also, again, going back to all the things we've already discussed with helping people, just being inspiring all the way around. I found this screenshot from Tracktown that I don't think had come out yet, right?
Yeah, no, it hadn't come out yet.
But I found this screenshot, put the forecast is fast on it. You qualify for the Olympics. I mean, did you know at the
cool
time?
For doing that. Look at that jacket. That jacket's so cool. Do you still have that jacket?
I do have that jacket.
That jacket's so cool.
Like the vintage Oregon.
It's amazing.
But and then FlowTrack took the picture, and then put it on Twitter or something. But that was so exciting. I mean, did you know at the time that you would already you realized you qualified?
Yeah. Oh man, I knew what I had to run. That was awesome. That was so awesome. I mean, the standards are, so these are, for people listening, there's Olympic times you have to hit to go to the Olympics. And for the US, there's also Olympic trials. For some countries, there's trials. For Greece, I needed to just hit that time. And it was fast, but it was just a perfectly executed race. And I remember during the race, I was like, am I in? Like, I trusted that I was okay, but I had my coach. I just remember my coach hanging over the fence, like the same fence in this photo. Like, and he always had a good balance of like being relaxed, but also not giving me so much information that I was allowed to relax. And that, he was a great coach. I mean, he's such a good coach in that way. But it was amazing, obviously, to qualify in this race because a lot of people ran really fast that night and just felt, got pizza afterwards, and it just felt really happy and good.
I even remember seeing the pizza photo on Twitter afterwards.
Yeah.
I was that probably sounds crazy.
No.
Weird.
No, that pizza place was famous for post-race pizza. Yeah.
Should we give them a shout out? What's the pizza spot?
It was Pizza My Heart, which is a chain, but they have one at Stanford.
Okay.
And they close really late, and you go there. This race was at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So you have to run there on your cool down.
So these were my teammates there, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he's from Germany. He just ran the Berlin Marathon.
Oh, that's...
My friend Matt. But it was so exciting, and I was pumped to see you race. The gun goes off, And my teammates laugh because the gun goes off and I go, "Go Alexi!" And I just yelled louder because the race had just started and I like probably echoed in the whole
You were probably responsible for me running that fast. I love this photo. You need to send me this photo. Do you have a high resolution of it?
I do. Yeah.
I want that photo.
Yeah.
It's so great.
I'm so glad whoever, I forget the flow track guy.
It's a really good picture.
That photo, but
it captures you are such an earnest person and like a genuine, like you're like a fan of people, which is like such a great quality to have. People are like, I think people are too cool to be a fan anymore. And it's like, being a fan of people is like a great thing. Like, why are we on this planet, you know?
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's a cool quality.
It really is why I do this Vancast, because it's so fun to talk to people making a difference, such as yourself, who in so many different ways, who really just do the things they do, not for just, their own glory, but really to build others up. And I think that's so cool. I wish we had a whole world of people doing that, and hopefully we'll get there closer and closer all the time with examples set forth, like this. You come over, you just qualify the Olympics. You're taking the time to sign this poster. I still have the poster too.
You do?
Of course.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
To really finish, is there any words of encouragement that you would want to give to people who maybe, ask you, like, how do I follow my dreams, whether it's in running or something else? And then also just how do you become that type of person we just talked about, building others up and being a fan of people?
I think that because there's so many things you could say about this subject, I think the first, I'll just tell you what's on my mind lately because it's a newer thought. And that's just that because I think I used to talk a lot about like find mentors, and I think that is so important, and like finding the resources, whatever, getting information, whatever. But I think really the thing I'll say today is for any need, first of all, it is very worthy to chase a dream that you don't know if you will get, and it is worth giving everything a shot because like why else are we on this planet? And when you make that decision, I think the first thing is to try first to not outsource the first thing you need with every step of the way. So like, let's just say emotionally, try to become emotionally there for yourself, which means, if you need encouragement, try to give that to yourself. Because you want to have other people around you supporting you, but you want to not need so much. You want to become self-sufficient. You want to become someone who can execute this plan to the best of your ability. You want to become someone who can support yourself health-wise, right? You want to like have enough information that you can do that. You want to support yourself financially with those basics. It doesn't, your dream doesn't have to be sustaining you, but something does, right? And so I think like this is very practical wisdom, but like if you want to chase a dream, I think slow down and take a second to empower yourself so that the first thing that you need in any category, you can try and fulfill for yourself, right? And people are part of that stable, right? Like to have a coach or friends or teammates or whatever it is, that's a part of your stable, but get those people, right? So that you, so that if one of those things goes away, or you can still keep going, right? So like I'm just sort of telling people to build a basic house for themselves before they go forth and decorate it, and build a solid house, put bricks down, not twigs. So I hope that helps, because I think sometimes we feel more helpless because we kind of are helpless until we learn how to like give ourselves some of the things we might need along that journey. And I hope that isn't too like vague of information or advice.
No, I think it's perfect. It's wide spanning. It's wonderful. And for people too who heard this whole conversation, or even just that part, I think again, you're setting that example that really stands behind those words. All they have to do is look to you to see, what is this person doing? And I think they see somebody who really cares deeply about others and really tries hard in their goals. And I think, the outcome of that is a life worth living. And I think it really just goes back to, building up one big family here on earth. And again, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this and share that wisdom through this channel, Alexi. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I gotta go jog now.
Go jog.
with the people.
But welcome home to the Bay,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you later.
Thank you. Talk soon.
Feel like I'm at the tippy top of my game, looking down at the raft. Confident,